Damn, man. Damn. This was really a video that I was hoping that I wasn't going to have to make, but unfortunately, it's pretty relevant right now, as of course, in yesterday's Game 4 between the Celtics and Knicks, with about 3 minutes to go, the Knicks were up 7, and Jayson Tatum took an awkward step. There was non-contact. He fell to the ground. And then today, just about 10 minutes ago, we did get the news that Jayson Tatum unfortunately ruptured his Achilles. Now, it sucks. Like, it genuinely hurts, even as a Boston Celtics hater. Of course I hate the Celtics. I'm a Miami Heat fan. I don't even like Jayson Tatum necessarily. I find him to be very cringe, but that doesn't matter. Like, you don't root for injuries in any sport. And the very select few people that do, that cheer for injuries of opposing teams, which is not a lot of people. It's a very loud but small minority on the internet, and people take those dumbasses and generalize them to be the whole fan base. But that's just not the case, right? I'd like to believe most people are good-hearted people that understand injuries suck no matter who they happen to. But to the people that are happy about this injury because they're a Knicks fan or a Cavs fan or a Pacers fan or a Heat fan, like, you're literally the worst human being in the world. Because as much as I dislike Jayson Tatum, this news hurt me, man. That Tatum tore his Achilles, dog. Right now, in the middle of a team with championship aspirations, looking to go back to back. Oh, that sucks, man. That really, really sucks. And just to think that it could happen to anybody, oh, it's scary. Even a guy like myself that plays pickup basketball 5-6 times a week, it could happen to me. You never know. I mean, Tatum, he took a normal step backwards. Next thing you know, his calf popped. Oh, it sucks, man. I first off want to start by saying that I truly wish Jayson Tatum the absolute most speedy recovery and hope he can get back to 100%. The Achilles one is rough, though, man. It's not like the ACL. You know, the doctors and scientists, I'm not a doctor, but they seem to have figured out the ACL injury, and guys have been able to return quicker than ever and be at 100%. But the Achilles one, it's a bit more tricky. You know, in history, the only guys that you really hear ever making a full recovery is they say like Dominique Wilkins back in the day, and then more recently Kevin Durant. But now, who knows? You know, of course, you had Damian Lillard. He just tore his Achilles. That whole Bucks situation's up in the air. We'll kind of discuss that because, you know, it's unfortunate that this is how it happened. But the reality is the East is wide open next season, and that does affect the Miami Heat. So we're going to get into that. But, you know, Dame is a guy that's much older. Who knows how that's going to impact his career? But Jayson Tatum being a guy that's a little bit younger, I certainly have some more hope that in a year's time he'll be able to make a full recovery. And that's just what we're hoping for at this point, because he likely will miss all of next season. You know, just the fact that he tore his Achilles in, mid-May? Yeah, you're probably not going to be back by next season. Now, he did already get the surgery, which is interesting because that happened fast. I mean, the injury happened last night. I was expecting to hear some early news, maybe very late last night. We didn't get nothing. And then early today, we still didn't get nothing. And, you know, as a fan of basketball, that kind of disheartened me because the longer we went without hearing news, I was assuming it was worse. And I guess that's because they were waiting until Tatum had successful surgery to make the news public. You know, as a Celtics fan, I would be distraught. You know, you're in the middle of your championship aspirations, and for this to happen, just what an absolute blow that is. At least it wasn't a case of like Derrick Rose where Thibodeau had him in the game in a meaningless blowout, like at the end of a playoff game, still playing him for no reason. You know, Celtics down 7 with 3 minutes to go. It's still a game. It's just unfortunate that happened, especially so late in the game. But like I said, it wasn't a blowout. He had to be out there, so maybe Celtics fans can find some solace in that. I really don't know, though. I mean, listen, obviously as a Heat fan, we've had our share of luck and misfortune. I mean, I think back to the big 3 years where those were obviously our best chances at winning championships, and we were fortunate enough to win a couple. The Heat were also fortunate enough during those times to not have any major injuries. Of course, you had a lot of role players banged up, Mike Miller and such. Dwayne Wade always had knee issues throughout the last 3 years of that build. And then the biggest injury was probably Chris Bosh, missing some of, the conference finals versus Boston, missing some of the Indiana series as well. But you were able to have him back by the NBA finals in both of those cases. And, the best part is you didn't lose LeBron or Dwayne Wade for significant amounts of time in the postseason. And they got very fortunate there. And I've always been very thankful for that because, very rarely do franchises have a championship window. And if you have a core that you believe is a championship window and then you have that stripped from you due to injuries, it's got to be the worst feeling in the world. I mean, look at the LA Clippers for all those years, the Lob City Clippers. They couldn't stay healthy. Even the Bucks have had injuries the last 3 years. Fortunately, they were able to get their one championship before their seasons were cut short due to injuries the last couple of years, including this one. I mean, you can even look at the Miami Heat. Go back to the first year of the Jimmy build. I've been a strong proponent saying they probably would have won the championship if Goran and Bam didn't get hurt in the finals. Goran tore his plantar fascia. He was able to return for Game 7, but he was heavily hobbled. Bam Adebayo missed a couple of games with the shoulder before returning. He wasn't extremely healthy. You can go back to 2022 where you had Tyler Hero hurt. You had PJ Tucker hurt. Even in 23, Tyler Hero broke his hand first game of that series versus the Bucks. They ended up going to the finals versus the Nuggets. Maybe the Heat win if Tyler Hero never gets hurt, if he's able to provide that extra scoring punch that Jimmy Butler was lacking. Because remember, Jimmy Butler got his ankle stomped on by Josh Hart. So even Jimmy was ailing at that point of the season. So the Heat have had their injuries, misfortunes as well. I mean, you can even go, I guess, between the Jimmy era and the Big Three era. I still think that Heat team in, 2017 was it? 2017, I think it was, or 2016 maybe, would have won the championship if Bosh didn't get sick with the blood clots, if Whiteside didn't get hurt. I mean, that team had a starting lineup of Goran Dragic, Dwayne Wade, Luol Deng, Chris Bosh, and Hassan Whiteside. That's a championship core at the time. But of course, Chris Bosh got sick back-to-back seasons. She lost Whiteside. So the Heat have gone through it too. And that's why I definitely feel for Celtics fans and Jayson Tatum's because, to an extent, we know what it's like as well. That it sucks. It really, really sucks. Now, on the flip side of things, to be selfishly positive, it does open up things in the East. I mean, whether Tatum got hurt or not, I was pretty certain the Celtics were going to make some kind of move just because their salary cap situation was a mess. They're paying so much money to so many guys, and they were so deep in that second apron, which truthfully, because of all the penalties associated with it, is not something that's really sustainable. And especially if they didn't win the championship this year, they were going to make moves. And let's say Tatum doesn't get hurt, they would still be down 3-1 against the Knicks, meaning they likely would lose that series, fall short in the second round. That would obviously be a failure for this Celtics build. So they're probably going to have to make moves, and now I would say that was stamped certain by the Tatum injury. And if you want to look at their salary cap here for the next couple of seasons, of course, you got Jaylen Brown on like the biggest contract in the league. He's going to be getting paid over $60 million, even up until the year 2029. Jayson Tatum on the books, same thing. Wow, Tatum's expected to make $71 million in 2029, 2030. That's insane. You got Drew Holiday on the books for huge money the next 3 seasons. Same goes for Derek White. Wow, Derek White's on the books for $30+ million for the next 4 years. That's insane. Al Horford's a free agent next year. Obviously, they're going to look to re-sign him. I don't expect him to be super cheap unless he takes a discount. Kristaps Porzingis is on for big money next year as well. So they can't afford to keep paying all these guys and keep paying that heavy second apron tax that they're paying. That's why they got new ownership, because they had to bring in someone new who didn't have the sentimental connection to these guys that could just cut bait. I would say maybe the most likely guy is Jaylen Brown, but who wants that contract at this point? I don't really know. Maybe they could find a team that's desperate enough. Maybe a team that's not really a free agent destination, like a Utah or a Detroit that wants to try to take the next leap. Maybe they go after a Jaylen Brown, but I think that'll be the first place the Celtics look. From a Heat fan perspective, I could really see them trying to get in on Drew Holiday, especially if they're going hard after a guy like Kevin Durant, who we know they will, which we'll get into. I think Drew Holiday would be the perfect backcourt pairing in that on that team, especially perfect or backcourt pairing next to Tyler Hero. You got the offense, defense. Holiday, a championship caliber guy, great relationship with Spo and KD and Bam from the Olympics. I think he would probably be the best bet. And at $32 million, you're basically looking at the Andrew Wiggins salary right there. So if you could supplement the Wiggins salary with Drew Holiday, that would obviously be incredible for the Miami Heat. Now, what kind of assets would Boston want for that? I don't know, but that'd be a whole other topic for a different video. It just sucks to think that Joe Cronin is the reason for all this in the first place. Because Joe Cronin was petty, because bum-ass Joe Cronin was petty, and he sent Dame to Milwaukee, and then he got Drew Holiday in return, and then flipped him to Boston to screw the Miami Heat even more. That's what made the Boston Celtics such a juggernaut, at least for last season, because again, this season they probably weren't going to win the championship anyways. But yeah, the Celtics are going to have to make some moves. Maybe the Heat could be buyers for a guy like Drew Holiday, but yeah, the East is definitely wide open because you take into the fact that the Celtics are likely no longer a contender next season. And then on top of that, all bets point to Giannis, one, leaving the Milwaukee Bucks, and two, joining a team out east. Of course, we've talked about the suitors multiple times. The top three teams I think have the best chance is the San Antonio Spurs, the Houston Rockets, and the Thunder. You know why? It's because those teams can be competitive right now and in the future, and they got a ton of assets, whether it's picks or young players. But let's say you don't even want to talk about Western Conference teams. I mean, let's look at the Eastern Conference standings. Between all these teams, where could you see Giannis realistically landing? Let's look at the bottom section here, 11 through 15. Giannis wants to compete. We know that. You've heard some Toronto rumors, but I don't think that's going to happen. But the other team you hear the most about is the Brooklyn Nets, right? And it's like, yes, they have the assets. Yes, they have the cap space. Yes, they have the big city appeal that I think Giannis is also looking for in addition to a chance to compete. But they don't have a chance to compete. Now, maybe they could trade a lot of assets for Giannis. I'm not sure what they would have left in return. Maybe they try to use those other assets to go after another guy, whether it's Ja Morant or bring Kevin Durant back. And now you got yourself a nice little 1-2 punch with Giannis and other insert all-star here. But that's just highly unlikely to do, to build a super team duo or a dynamic duo in just one offseason. It's highly unlikely. I don't even think the Nets would be on Giannis's list, truthfully. If you look at the mid-tier, you got the Magic, Hawks, Bulls, and Heat. I don't know. I've heard some rumors about the Bulls, but they're not going to be competitive either. And then it's like you look at the Miami Heat, and I could give you some reasons why he'd want to come here, but I can't in my right mind truthfully tell you, or at least believe it when I say that the Heat could build a competitor around him anytime soon, because we'd have to trade almost all our assets to get him. Now, as a Heat fan, I would definitely do it because I believe you get the superstar and figure out the rest later, but that's not Giannis's mindset. Giannis is not going to say, oh, let me come to the Miami Heat. I trust him to figure out the rest later. Now, he might, because he saw us get to an NBA Finals multiple times with Jimmy Butler. Maybe he believes that he's so much better than Jimmy Butler, which I guess he is. So he could see that and say, hey, if Jimmy took this team to the finals, I can get to the finals. I've seen the Miami Heat surround their teams with great role players from undrafted free agency or whatnot. And maybe he does believe that the Heat can get into the NBA Finals. Maybe the Heat have a real chance because Giannis is the same agent as Bam, so they have an open line of communication there. Because if not the Miami Heat, where else in the East, right? The Cavs are not going to do it. They're not going to blow up their whole team after the dominant regular season they had to get Giannis. The Celtics, I mean, unless the Bucks want the Jaylen Brown contract to be mediocre now, like let's say they got Jaylen Brown and Drew Holiday, they'd be mediocre next year. Why would they want that? Like, if you're the Bucks, you should go young. You should want to rebuild. I know they don't control their own draft pick destiny for the next several seasons, but you would think they would want other teams' draft capital instead of just getting the Bucks and the Bucks mid players to be okay next season. That doesn't make a lot of sense for the Bucks, why they would want to do that. Same, I guess, goes for the New York Knicks, who you heard today they're going to be aggressive in their pursuit of Giannis, which it's like, duh. I'm sure they're going to want Giannis, but how aggressive can they really be? Are they going to blow up their core after now they're likely going to make the conference finals? Are they going to trade Mikal and Karl Anthony Towns? I don't think they would do that. And then to the same point, what does Mikal Bridges and Karl Towns get the Bucks next year? A 6 seed? A 7 seed? Why would they do that? And then same thing. Yeah, Pacers, I don't think they would blow it up. And then Pistons, I mean, maybe. I know the Pistons got the picks. Maybe they want to flip like an Asar Thompson if the Bucks have a lot of interest in him, or I don't know whoever else is over there. But yeah, so maybe Giannis says, hey, yeah, those teams out west, they would be competitive if I went to the Rockets or Thunder or Spurs. Well, if he goes to the Thunder, that team would be championship favorites easily. But I'm not sure the Rockets or Spurs would be favorites. I think they would be contenders, but Giannis would still have to go through a bloodbath in the West. So maybe he says, hey, I want to stay in the East. So maybe he does put the Miami Heat on his list, and based off process of elimination, which we kind of softly just did, maybe he says, yeah, okay, I'm cool going to the Miami Heat. Let's get it done. As long as they keep Bam Adebayo. Take Tyler Hero, take Jovic, take the picks, right? Even take Khalil Ware if you need to. And now we got a duo of Giannis and Bam. And you're going to have some salary cap space coming up because the Duncan and Terry Rozier contracts are expiring. You go into free agency. Guys will want to come here because you got Giannis and Bam Adebayo. And maybe you got a championship contender by maybe not next year, maybe the year after that. So it just depends. The Heat are definitely going to have to get aggressive now that the East is open. And then, of course, the guy that most people are going to think the Heat should go after now because he's more realistic than Giannis and he could give you a chance now that the Bucks and Celtics probably won't be super competitive next year is Kevin Durant. Now, the trade package that I keep putting out there for Kevin Durant is sending over Terry Rozier and the Duncan Robinson expiring contracts to Phoenix, and then also sending over Nikola Jovic and 2 first-round picks. Of course, there's a lot of renditions of the Kevin Durant trade. We've already posted videos on some of them. We'll do more as the offseason goes on, whether they want to send the Andrew Wiggins salary or also send over Jaime Jaquez or maybe even an extra first-round pick. There's some things that they can do there. I think the Suns' main goal would be getting under the second apron, which this trade could do because Duncan Robinson's $20 million is not actually fully guaranteed. It's only $9 million guaranteed, which if the Suns decide to trade for him and then waive him, they would be saving another $10 million, which would get them under that second apron. And then, of course, they would have that large Terry Rozier number come off the books the following season. So if you're watching this video, then you are an elite ball knower. So why not take advantage of it with MyBookie? Listen, y'all, throughout the NBA playoffs, I'll be using their live betting feature to smash the Davion Mitchell overs and smash the Rudy Gobert unders, and then using their early cash out option to stack up the profits. If you want to do the same, make sure to sign up for MyBookie using promo code MM50, which will instantly boost your first deposit. And then once the games wrap up, you can check out their casino, which has blackjack and slots and roulette. You name it, bet on anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. Now let's get back into the video. These are part of the reasons I think the Heat have a chance. The Suns will want expiring money. You know how hard it is for other teams to match $54 million of expiring money? Now, the Rockets could do it with Van Fleet, and I know that's probably the biggest suitor for Kevin Durant right now outside of the Heat. I guess except maybe Minnesota. I'm not sure what their contract situation would be there. But the Heat do have that benefit. They have 2 large expiring contracts in Terry Rozier and Duncan. If the Suns don't want that and they would rather be a better team in the immediate future, then we can send over that Wiggins salary, who also makes about $30 million, and you can sort of make the numbers work there. But the point is, the Heat need to be aggressive now, I guess, in free agency. And I wanted Kevin Durant before. A lot of people did. A lot of people were more hesitant, but I'm already starting to see in the last 14 hours since we all suspected Tatum's injury, I'm already starting to see a lot more people lean towards the whole, hey, let's go get Kevin Durant because you could actually have a legitimate shot to make the NBA Finals next season. So I certainly think that he should do it. And even if they get Kevin Durant, I mean, you still have another first-round pick. You still have Khalil Ware. You can be aggressive to maybe get another guy, maybe get a point guard. Look into what Ja Morant's potential trade value is. Maybe trade Tyler Hero for Ja Morant. Trade him for Trae Young. I don't think Durant is the only move they should make. I think they should do a major overhaul because of how poorly last season ended. And if that means keep Bam Adebayo and trade everyone else for Durant in pieces, I would do it. And of course, let's say they don't, but let's say you even have a starting lineup next year of you re-sign Davion Mitchell, you got Tyler, Durant, Bam Adebayo, and Khalil Ware. I think that team can make the finals in the East. I really, really could. And let's say you're even able to keep Wiggins, who I think is the perfect complementary role player on a team that has the scoring of Durant and Tyler Hero. Because now Wiggins is your 3rd or 4th offensive option. He can go back to being that dominant 2-way role player we saw him be with the Warriors. Now you'd have a lineup of Hero, Wiggins, KD, Bam, and Ware. I mean, who's beating that in the East? Yes, you still got the Cavaliers, but we're seeing them fold right now. You're seeing them. They're down 3-1 in the conference finals also. I know they got some injuries. Donovan Mitchell is banged up again. He turned his ankle, but that's another reason the Heat should be competitive is because if you go into the playoffs with a competitive team, maybe some things break your way. And then maybe you actually have even more of a legit case. But yeah, I guess the Cavs would still be contenders. The Knicks and the Pacers would be contenders. Those are the only three teams, right? Cavs, Knicks, Pacers. Those are the only three teams that maybe could have a better record than the Heat in terms of regular season. But I'm probably still picking the Heat. The Heat could probably finish 1 or 2 if they bring in Durant next season, just because the Bucks and Celtics are not going to be a threat. So as unfortunate, as that Tatum injury is, it does completely change the landscape of the East and makes things a little bit more interesting this offseason. But anyways, that's really all I got to say for this video. Let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know if you were interested in Kevin Durant as a Heat fan and if this Tatum injury kind of changed the way that you feel. I'm very curious to hear what y'all think. We do pray for a speedy recovery for Jayson Tatum, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace out, everyone.
Look, pull up in your city tryna get that dead face. Do it on my own, I don't need no dead weight. Had to kill him off, yeah, I need a head space. You know this homegrown bitch don't offend me.